Okay, hello everyone. Let's get this party started, shall we? Welcome to our final day of our CONNEXT conference. For our last session, I am going to dive right in. I only have a couple housekeeping items that I want to mention. If you guys have any technical issues today, if you lose audio or visuals during the presentation, please let us know in the Q&A box. Lacey and Cody are helping behind the scenes to make sure that you all have a great experience. So if that happens, let us know right away. Today's session is, of course, being recorded, and we're going to send it later today with the CE info. We'll post it in the Facebook group. We will also post it on the CONNEXT page, where you can find all of the past recordings and handout resources. After the introductions, I'll post a link to the CONNEXT recordings in the notes that are above the Q&A box so that you guys can save it and you can access those recordings anytime. All right, so if you guys attended yesterday, you know today's speaker is back for round 2. We are so happy to host hygienist Josey Sewell again. Besides being one of my dear friends, Josey has an impressive resume and depth of experience that she brings with her. She's one of the best at coaching dental offices and dental organizations on how to successfully integrate culture and team health with data and sound operational systems. This expertise comes from her role as Chief Operating Officer of Carolina's Dentists, which was a $40 million DSO. Josey really believes that the greatest disparity in the business healthcare world is the inability to harness human energy due to outdated management practices. This woman is a fierce advocate for the growth and development of people because she has seen firsthand how transforming individuals to have great personal satisfaction in their job can in turn propel a business into greatness. But before we hand the mic over to Josey, we also have Dr. Cooch joining us today. You probably know by now, Dr. Cooch is the founder of Carefree, also an incredible leader in dentistry, and these two are continuing to do wonderful things for our dental community. So without further ado, Dr. Cooch, would you like to officially give the stage to Josey?
Yes, I would, Kendall, and before I do that, this is our last webinar in this series. It's been an amazing adventure for all of us, and I just want to put a big heartfelt thanks out to the entire team at Carefree there that made this happen. Kendall, Laura, Ashley, Lacey, Nicole, Taylor, Cody, and Jenny. And I was just talking to Dana this morning, and it's amazing because I've watched every single one of these, and just the wealth of knowledge that we've shared in the last 5 weeks is just amazing to me, and how many people that we've touched through all of these webinars. And Josey, you are the only person who's actually signed up to do it twice, so we thank you for that. But it kind of reminds me of, I'm reminded of a thought. John Coyce has a saying that you hear from him a lot, and he says, you know, all of us are smarter than one of us. And I tell you, just looking at all the knowledge that we have in this whole team of people, it's just absolutely amazing. And Josey, I'm looking forward to your data culture today because it's my belief if you're not measuring it, you're flying without instruments. And I can't imagine any pilot that would do that. So take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm honored to help wrap it up and bring it to a close. I am so impressed with what you guys have done and the speakers that you've had, and I mean, managing this technology for one thing just takes so much energy. So thank you guys so much for providing such a benefit to the dental industry, and thank you for having me. Like Kendall mentioned, I am a dental hygienist and started practicing in New Mexico, graduated from San Juan College, and moved about and did some practice management consulting and coaching. Then I was an executive leader at Carolina's Dentists before joining the Dental Intelligence team. Last November, I am the VP of Education, and I have the opportunity to help build, right now I'm in the middle of building an online educational program for office managers, really on this subject, how to create and build a data-driven culture. I am a fanatic about team health, and what I mean by team health is having positive relationships within work so that we can feel comfortable being ourselves, admitting our mistakes, asking questions, and a huge advocate for positive servant leadership, because we all need that. And having been in a difficult environment, I know how hard it is to work at a place where we are not happy. And I believe that we can change those work environments to be a place where people enjoy coming, where they are engaged and where they're happy. You know, some of the most fascinating research on team engagement comes from the Gallup Association, or the Gallup Company, and they've been studying team engagement for over 80 years. And what they have demonstrated is that only 15% of people are actively engaged at work, and this is across the world. And 70% are just not engaged. So that means that they do, you know, just enough to not get fired. They clock in, they clock out, they do maybe what's asked of them, but they're not really solving additional problems or helping grow the company. And then 15% are actively disengaged. And, you know, what's so interesting to me is the research that Gallup has done most recently is that they have found that having a great office manager, or not even office manager, but the manager is actually the lever in helping people move from being not engaged to being actively engaged. And what people are looking for is a manager who is really concerned about their growth and their development personally and professionally, but also people are looking for the opportunity to grow and to develop. So in an industry like dentistry, where as a dental hygienist, if I'm a clinician, I don't get to be a dental hygienist for 10 years and then I get to move up to being a dentist or something like that. Where there's not a lot of upward mobility, it's going to be super important to focus on mastery, so that we keep people engaged, so that even if they are in the same position, year after year, we are challenging them and growing them and helping them develop. And the way that we can do that is through data. So if I have my fellow hygienist on here, you might be thinking like, oh great, she's going to talk about numbers and maybe she just cares about the business. And I hope that by the end of today that you can say, you know what, I'm pretty interested in this data stuff. Owners are interested in it, dentists are typically interested in it, but the team has a harder time. And that's because when we start to introduce data and metrics and analytics into a practice, a lot of times the leaders may not explain why we're using that data or what the purpose is. And so sometimes it can feel a little threatening or a little scary. Also, sometimes it's kind of hard to see our performance posted against everybody else. And so it takes some trust to do that. I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, but I'm hoping that even if maybe you're a skeptic of data, that maybe we can change your mind a little bit. So I work for Dental Intelligence. We are a SaaS company, or software as a service, and we are based in Pleasant Grove, Utah. The history of the company is really interesting. Our CEO, Weston Lunsford, previous to starting Dental Intel, he owned a CPA firm. And one of the things that they really specialized in was working with dentists and helping dentists. And so through their time, you know, they helped them pay down their debt, or, you know, helped them guide the growth of their practice. And one of the things they constantly struggled with was trying to pull reports out of our practice management system, whether that's Dentrix or EcoSoft, Open Dental, whatever it is that you use. And so they created some dashboards and some things to help their clients understand their business better. And they would coach them up and they would do, you know, grow the business and be satisfied. And then, you know, they might not use the consulting services anymore, but they really wanted the dashboards. They still really wanted the analytics. And so, you know, Weston will talk about how he pushed back on that a little bit until he finally was like, you know what, if this is what the market needs, then this is, you know, how we can help them. So lo and behold, Dental Intelligence was born. We're a few years old. I think 2015, ooh, I might have that wrong. I'm gonna say 2015 is when the company started. And I will tell you that I have never worked for a company that is more passionate about oral health than a software company, which is so funny because even when I was the COO of Carolina's Dentist, we were focusing on group practice owned by dentists, and yes, we're concerned about patients, but what I love about Dental Intel is our purpose and our mission, very simply, is to help practices grow. And we also are on a mission to help 50 million more patients be scheduled with their dentist by utilizing our technology. And every single company meeting that we have, anywhere that we go, we're always coming back to what is our purpose and our mission, and it is to have a significant impact on the oral health of the world by utilizing technology and innovation to help dental offices run smarter and to help them get their patients in and keep track of their patients. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're going to do that today. So if you're not familiar with dental intelligence, a lot of people know that we have data analytics software, right? So the numbers in your practice are what you might look at, but there's so much more to what we offer than that. So I like to tell people that I want you to think of like, there's almost like two, not branches, but two major different sections of inside Dental Intel. One of them is absolutely, we have data analytics. We have all of the analytics you would ever want. But the second thing is we have a lot of features or applications to help automate some workflows or make things really easy for you. What I also love, and it was such a discovery for me in joining the team, was they sit and think about dental professionals all day, every day, and they study them. And so Weston will just go into an office and he'll spend hours just observing office managers or front office people or dentists or assistants or whoever, and then he will go back and he will try to figure out a way how to solve some of their problems with technology. And so many of the things and the features that we have, the applications that we have come from recognizing what's hard in a dental office. So with the data analytics, we absolutely have plenty of practice numbers, right? We have a performance board. It's kind of like, we think of it as like your practice scorecard that will break things down, but also on an individual level. So individual providers being able to look in and see what they can do and see what, their metrics might look like. We have it, on a desktop, like browser, or we also have a mobile app. So at Carolina's Dentist, I was a customer of DI for 3 years before I joined the company. And it was our expectation when we onboarded team members that they would download the app and we would get them started on that, and they would use the app a lot. So again, it's, there's just lots of great things. The next things, we have a morning huddle feature, which automates and pulls together what you need for a morning huddle. Whether or not you are using the Dental Intel morning huddle, you should be having a morning huddle. We found that people were spending hours pulling together information to be ready for their huddle, and we wanted to automate that for them. So your huddle will walk you through what happened yesterday, what you're looking at today, and what you should look for tomorrow. And then we always have a motivational minute. So a motivational video for you to watch with your team to start your day on the right foot. One of the newest features in the morning huddle that everybody just loves and is so excited about is, for today, I can view your schedule by operatory, which allows me to see the holes in your schedule. I can then click on an opening inside the morning huddle, and it's going to pull up a list of patients that you can fill that hole with. Now, the research that we did, we found that for when teams would try to fill holes in a schedule, they would often have to dial 18 times to fill one spot. So we used what we know about data, algorithms, analytics, and got our dev team working on it. And now when you click on that, you're going to get this list of patients that, based on the algorithms, these are the people most likely to fill that hole based on what type of appointment it is, when they've been in the past, what they have available, that they need to have done. So we've been able to decrease that by half. So it really now takes maybe 9 dials to fill that hole instead of 18 dials. We also have something called Followups. We're going to talk a little bit about it today, but dentists, I I love you, but anytime I talk to a dentist, if there's anything going wrong in their practice, they think the answer is new patients, and they're chasing the new patients. And I'm going to show you through some things today that actually you want to focus on the patients that you have, and likely you're not getting them reappointed. Follow-ups are automatic settings that basically they become like, if you've ever walked by the front office and there's like stickies everywhere, or this notebook that people are trying to keep track of patients, or maybe you're pulling some recare list out of your practice management system. Follow-ups are automatic little like to-dos almost that tell you who you need to call every single day and allow you to keep better track of your patients. It also will show the performance of the people who are making those calls. So the front office team, after you get everything set up, all they need to do is every single day they go into their follow-ups and they just get that down to 0. Those are the patients they need to call that day. No searching or running around or trying their best to figure it out. So that's what follow-ups are. It's how to keep track of your patients and know exactly who needs to be called. The other thing that we have is this really great feature called a patient finder. You simply cannot slice and dice your patient list any better. Like, you can't do it in your practice management system like you can in Dental Intel. So let's say people are using this in really creative ways. And I used this whenever Carolina's dentist, we were hit with a hurricane. It shut our offices down. And we utilized the patient finder to help us recover from the hurricane by picking which patients we knew we could focus on. So for example, let's say that it's getting to the end of the year and you are maybe a PPO practice and you want to reach out to people and you want to get them back in before their insurance benefits run out. I can very simply go into this application and I can say, I want all patients who have a treatment plan, anything on their treatment plan with unscheduled treatment, so something you've diagnosed, but the patient has not finished yet, and maybe I know Delta Dental or some, MetLife, whatever insurance company is about to run out, and maybe I decide that MetLife reimburses a little bit more than the other ones, so I want to focus on those patients. I can pull all of those patients in this list, turn it into that follow-up, so then my team knows exactly who to call and to get back in. So maybe it's, you want to focus on getting implants done or crowns done, or you just want to know who is due for hygiene. The ability for you to customize the list and pull it is really, really incredible. The other thing that we've done, I'm really, really proud of Dental Intel in the way that they've responded to COVID. And what is happening with practices is our development team worked really, really hard, and they went in and created some pre-populated lists so that when your doors are open, for you to focus on patients with a greater clinical need, because likely those patients need you faster than maybe the healthy patients do. But also, many of us are fighting to keep our businesses open. Many of us are fighting to stay alive. And so the faster that you can produce when you get back, the faster you're going to recover. So pulling up those patients and creating this list to tell you who has the greatest clinical need and who might be the best patients for you to get back so that you can recover is something that we have been working on. Sorry.
Hey everyone, it looks like Josey lost her connection. It's getting her back in, so bear with us for just a second.
Am I back?
Okay. You are back.
Okay.
Never skipped a beat.
So real-time online scheduling. If you've ever heard of the company LocalMed, Dental Intel acquired LocalMed last fall. Yes, last fall. So LocalMed is an amazing, amazing product where you can add the link to your website, to your social media, wherever, and patients can go and they can schedule via LocalMed, and it will automatically add to your practice management system. So it's incredibly valuable. I will tell you that at Carolina's Dentist, we also used LocalMed, and a significant number of both our new patients and our existing patients loved that feature and would schedule online with LocalMed. And a lot of people get kind of worried that maybe, oh, I don't want my patients to have, that control over my schedule, and oh my gosh, I can't trust them to make the right appointment. You have all of the customization in the settings to make this really, really simple. So, many of you might have the ability to request an appointment on your website, but if you imagine the way that we operate in this world, we want things soon, right? We want them quick. And if I remember at 10 p.m. that I need to make a dental appointment, I don't want to go and fill out a form and wait for somebody to call me and I miss their call while I'm at work and trying back and forth. I want to be able to just schedule it and get it done. So again, you set the parameters, but you will be amazed, even while your office is opening and people are answering the phone, you will be getting new patients or existing patient scheduling. Now, with they've been working on it for some time, but what I love is how they've accelerated development to answer the call for what dental offices need right now. So now we've actually integrated LocalMed technology into the Dental Intel platform. So you can schedule right from Dental Intel. So this means if you can only have a few people in the office at a time, you can have people working remotely, so they know exactly who they need to reach out and schedule, and they can schedule via Dental Intel using the LocalMed technology is integrated in there. So it becomes as easy as I'm pulling up a list, I'm clicking on a patient, and I can click a button that's sending them a link specific to them to get scheduled. Many of you have probably also tried to figure out an addition, like a special code or a way to keep track of all of the patients that you had to reschedule for the weeks that you were closed. We also have automated all of that for you so that you can go in and it's just a pre-populated list that says, hey, these are your patients that their appointment needed to be broken since March 16th, when most offices closed. So it's, again, all there for you, automated so that you can go back in and get people scheduled. We are having webinars daily right now talking about what's called our slingshot plan. So if you go to dentalintel.com, you can sign up for one of those webinars. I will tell you that the company is also doing everything that they can to get these tools in dentist hands, because we are so confident this is how we can help the dental industry recover, that they will help get that in your hands without some upfront financial obligation. So anyway, just keep that in mind. I'm really, really proud of the way that the company is serving the industry and just the investment that they're making in the industry. So switching now a little bit from, that's Dental Intel, and that's where, I live and breathe and work, and I use them again as a customer and loved the product so much and the team so much that wanted to join the team and moved from North Carolina to Utah last November. So especially this audience, those of you who use Carry-Free and you understand this, like you guys, I don't need to talk about evidence-based dentistry. You know what that is, right? And you live and you breathe evidence-based dentistry every single day. And so again, I want to take into your mind, think about all of the research that you do, all of the thought that you put into understanding a product or even like a new procedure or a new way of doing things, and deciding how best to help your patients. And that is what makes you an amazing clinician. So what's so interesting is that we treat our patients that way, but we don't treat our business that way. So I just want to make the correlation that I really, really want you to start thinking about your business and your practice, whether you are an individual hygienist listening to this or a front office person. I want us to think about evidence-based performance like we think about evidence-based practice. So we work with over 5,000 practices combined with LocalMed. I think we help serve over 7,000 different locations, including some groups. But we have 87 million patients in our database. So there's not any other company that has more information on patient behavior than Dental Intel. We want to take what we know, we want to take this type of data and information and apply it to your business so that we're, again, looking at this evidence-based performance. So that you don't feel like you're flying blind, you know, like Dr. Cooch said, you know, it's like a pilot without instruments, without being able to see things. And you know, sometimes we're a little afraid of the numbers, or we're not sure how, like, the context around it. When you first start using data analytics, you're going to look at it and be very overwhelmed and confused, and it's probably going to feel a little frustrating. But remember, the first time we saw a perio chart, we felt the same way. And now I could hand any one of you a perio chart and a few x-rays, and you would have a pretty good idea what you're looking at. And so it becomes the same thing. We have to work to understand the context, to get familiar with it, and to make it a normal part of what we do. So again, this is just a visualization of data can help support and drive your practice, your vision, your team, your clinical standards, your systems and technology. Data can support you in all of these things, and these things are all portions and parts of your business that really, really matter. And I love, Dr. Cooch pointed it out yesterday when we were together, that as dentists or as clinicians, we feel like the answer to all the problems is sometimes clinically what we're capable of or what we're doing. When in fact, if we put the same amount of effort in learning to communicate better, learning to understand your business better, then we would see that it rounds out. Sometimes we're a little lopsided and we focus so much on the clinical, and you absolutely have to have that, but these other things support you in that clinical work. I love John Maxwell. You know, he's written a ton on leadership, and one of the things that he talks about is the law of the scoreboard. And if you imagine, you know, what it would be like to play in the Super Bowl, whether you're a fan or maybe you're playing in the Super Bowl, and you know, the game matters, the game is important, and we're playing, but we don't have a scoreboard, right? We don't know where we are in the game, and only at the end of the game does the scoreboard light up and we find out where we are and if we won or lost. That makes absolutely no sense, right? At halftime, I don't know if I should focus on my offense or my defense. I don't know what my special team should be doing. I'm clueless, right? So unfortunately, this is how a lot of dentists run their business. Many of them don't know how they're doing or how they've done until they get a P&L. And they're going to get a P&L towards, you know, the end of the month. It's a month and a half ago by the time they finally get it and they open it, and they might look at that P&L and go, oh, that was a rough month. Why was that a rough month? I'm not really sure. Like, okay, well, maybe we're going to do better next time. But we don't know what doing better is. So the scoreboard is really like, how do we know if we're winning or if we're losing? How do we know if we're even treating our patients and being effective with our patients if we're not tracking and measuring things? So we have to have a scoreboard to know if we're winning. Our team members have to know if they're winning. So really, the data provides the pulse of your business. It provides the pulse of your organization. If you have been doing the same thing year after year and you've struggled and your business hasn't grown, then maybe we need to be tracking and measuring some more information. Now, before we get into the data part of it, I just want to first.
Hey everyone, I'm guessing, yep, She's going to be back in just a second.
So strange. Never had the issue before. Okay. There I am. Okay. All right. So this is based on the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. I think I mentioned it yesterday. If you haven't read it yet, please pick it up. So this talks about how we can be a healthy team and a smart team. And being a smart team is having great strategy, great process and systems and things like that. A lot of people really focus most of their time on being a smart team. But you also have to be a healthy team. And what that means is that you have to have vulnerability-based trust in your team. You have to be able to admit mistakes, admit your failures, say, you know what, your idea is better than mine. We also have to air our dirty laundry and talk about things without there being fear of reprisal or that I'm going to lose my job if I'm asking questions.
Hey, you guys, it appears that we're having a little bit of a connection issue. Internet is not quite as strong as it was yesterday.
Okay. Totally my fault. I was upstairs working. I forgot to turn off the Wi-Fi. Now I'm hardwired in, so we should be good to go. I promise. Fingers crossed. So back to this. In order to create a healthy team, and I will tell you that you have to have a healthy culture and a healthy team in order for data to really work with you, for you, and to support your team. Because if you don't have trust in your team, then they will fear the data, they will feel like you are micromanaging them, and rather than empowering them and supporting them with the data. So having that vulnerability-based trust, once you have that, the next thing you have to focus on is constructive conflict. And as dental professionals, many of us really struggle with conflict. We avoid it at all costs. And many of us, I know I used to be terrible about this, I would make myself sick, worried about having to have a tough conversation with someone because I didn't want to hurt their feelings and I worried about them. And we spend all day, every day, making people comfortable in an uncomfortable position. So it's no wonder that we do struggle with conflict. And the type of conflict I'm talking about is not that I'm going to tell you that you're terrible at your job or you're a horrible person or, backstabbing. That's not the type of conflict what I'm talking about. What I'm really talking about is challenging the status quo, asking questions, being able to talk through things. Yesterday we had the question, you know what, if you want to implement change with your team, but you get resistance, how do you handle that? And part of that is having an environment of this constructive
We were hopeful hardwired connection would fix the issue, so it's logging her back in.
I don't know what is happening. I'm so sorry, everybody.
Just a second here. Thank you guys for your patience.
All right, so constructive conflict is about being able to ask questions. Tell me why you want us to use more about this, or how is this going to work, or what are your expectations, or I'm worried, or I'm scared, or whatever the case might be. That constructive conflict is really just the ability to poke holes in ideas and so that we can come together on solutions. Then after we have that constructive conflict, we have greater levels of commitment. Now I will tell you, you have to have the vulnerability-based trust in order to have the constructive conflict. And when you have that, that definitely leads to that greater commitment. And so an accountability and results. So my example of this is, imagine that I come to my treatment coordinators and I say, hey, dental intel calls are super important, and now everybody's going to have a key performance indicator or a KPI, and yours is going to be follow-up calls, and I want you to do 80 calls in a week. Okay? All right. And I've just told them what to do and I didn't involve them in the process, that's when I'm going to lose them. That's when, they might sit back and say, oh, she just sits in her little office and she doesn't know what it's like, and who has time for 80 calls, and this is so dumb, and that's not my job. Instead, if I approach it and say, hey, Jeannie, you know what? I'm recognizing, and I think that dental intel follow-up calls are really important to our business because this is what I'm seeing. What are you seeing? What has your experience been like? What has worked well for you? What has been a struggle for you? Okay, well, we're trying to, get more efficient and more transparent and make sure that everybody has specific goals that they're working towards. I'm thinking for treatment coordinators, dental intel calls might be what we track. What do you think about that? Okay, great. All right. So what would get in the way if we set a number of like certain dental intel calls, or how do you think that it should be measured? And okay, what do you think is possible? And she might say 100 calls in a week if you allow me to have an hour a day uninterrupted, or whatever the case might be. So then when they participate in the process and they're allowed to ask questions or poke holes, that's when we get that commitment. So coming to your team with 80% of the plan and letting them fill in the 20%. When we also involve people and they feel like they're part of the process, we have greater accountability. And so I don't mean that accountability goes from the top down, but it's this peer-to-peer accountability. So it's me as a treatment coordinator saying, oh, hey, Christina, I noticed that you've only done 30 dental intel calls and you haven't met your goal for the last couple of weeks. Is there anything that I can help you with? What do you need from me? Because we're all, trying to make sure that we do these things. And that's what leads to results. Now, you can absolutely have incredible results without any of these things, but they will take a lot more time and energy because you're going to be pulling people along rather than people really driving things forward. Remember when I mentioned earlier talking about engaged or not engaged people? If you move that 15% engaged people to 50% engaged or even 30% engaged, they will be driving your business and your office forward rather than you feeling like you have to pull people along. So again, if you have a very toxic culture and people don't trust each other and you throw data in there, it's going to be kind of tough. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't do it, but that means that you're going to have some work to gain the trust of your team and help them see how you're using it. But for teams that have, great team health or culture, they can be, they have positive relationships. This is going to be where this just really adds fuel to the fire when you help with data. So what team members really, really want is they want clarity of expectation. As I've done coaching with different offices and different groups and, helped build a group myself, there's a lot of times that managers or leaders or owners will blame their team and they just think they have the wrong team. And I just wish I had this team of superstars. I will tell you that you can take somebody who's a rock star 10 and put them in an environment that's not great and doesn't have clarity and expectation, and they're going to end up being a 4 employee. You take a 4 employee and put them in an environment where there's clarity and there's consistency and accountability, and they can be a 10. So quite often we're blaming our people when in fact it could be our process and it could be our environment. So your environment leads to accountability. And if your team members are not doing things that you thought they should do or you needed them to do, chances are you might not be clear enough in your expectation and you're not consistent enough. So team members are really, really looking for that clarity of expectation. So how can you provide that? Well, making sure that you have your clear company vision and purpose. You're helping me understand what we're going to accomplish in this world and what impact we're going to make. Even if that's, we're going to provide an amazing experience to our patients and a great place to call home for our team members. That is our purpose and vision in this company. That's great. It doesn't have to be some crazy, we're going to save everybody and we're going to cure periodontal disease, although that's admirable, but just be clear about it. Being clear about your core values and how people should behave. And then with key performance indicators or success indicators. So I know if I'm winning or not. I know if I'm doing a good job. Before I go into this, I also want to say, just point out one thing, and that is before I start using the P word, which is profits, which some people will think that's like a bad word. I want to pull the fear out of that, and I want to just be very open about how sometimes being transparent about dental offices also being profitable businesses can make people squirm a little bit. And that's because we are healthcare providers and we care about health first and foremost. And we also have to recognize that in order for us to have a job that we get to go to and a paycheck, in order for a business to make a greater impact, it has to be profitable. So I want you to make sure and jot this down. Where there is no margin, there is no mission. And I think even Dr. Roman referred to this yesterday. And so what I mean by that is if there are not profit margins, then the company can't fulfill its mission of making an impact. So if you imagine a time in college, or I mean, let's be honest, many of us are probably in this situation right now, especially if we've lost our jobs, where finances are really, really tight. So let's take it back to college so it doesn't feel so raw right now. But imagine that you're in college and you're working part-time, but you're going to school full-time and you're living on ramen noodles, right? And it's like, if Netflix hits at the wrong time, you're going to overdraft in your account. Take your mind to that situation and think about how stressful that was and how overwhelming that was. How capable were you of thinking about other people, of serving other people, of being mindful of others or going out of your way? I mean, even if you wanted to buy somebody dinner, you might not be able to. And so when we are under that type of financial stress, that's all we think about. We become consumed by it. So, maybe, I think my student loans for dental hygiene were like $8,000 or something, right? Not even that big of a deal. But many of us become crippled by our student loans or our debt. Now, I want you to imagine that you're a dentist and you went to school and now you're $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in debt. And instead of, joining a group, maybe you wanted to buy your own practice. So you spend an additional $800,000, $500,000, $800,000, $1 million purchasing a practice. And now you are in debt, $1.5 million. And yet you haven't even done a filling outside of dental school. And so you were trained to be a clinician, you were trained to be a dentist, and now you have to be a business owner. And now you have this debt load, and you also have, let's talk about these 15 people who are paying their bills and feeding their family based on what you're paying them and the income that you're providing. So imagine the stress that our dentists are under and what they go through in trying to manage. And that's really tough. Now imagine we've experienced a worldwide pandemic. Their office has been shut down for 7 or 8 weeks, so there's zero revenue coming in. They've tried to figure out what to do with their team. They're trying to figure out, now they have to be an HR law specialist, and they have to be a finance expert, and they have to do all of these things. The stress that our poor owners are under, that is not something that most of us would willingly take on. But they did because they're entrepreneurs. They believe in what they do, and they believe in the ability to affect people's lives. And so as team members, sometimes we can get a little grouchy or feel like, I can't believe you're not paying me the whole time we're off, or I can't believe now that we're coming back, you're going to decrease my pay. And we're in a really, really interesting situation. But let's go back to no margin, no mission. So until we have profit margin in the business, we can't fulfill our mission in being able to provide that great home for people to call their work family. We can't provide that place to treat our patients and help improve their oral health. So we're all going to be asked to sacrifice a little as we recover from this worldwide pandemic. So as profit margin grows, that means you have money to create a bonus plan. You can offer benefits. You can do free dentistry. You can pay for the little league team. You decide what your impact is, but if there's no margin, there's no mission. So please just keep that in your mind as we walk through this. So the profit formula is very, very simple, and it's going to really distill the business of dentistry down into a very easy formula that anybody on your team can understand. So I want you to make sure that you are jotting down some notes through this, because you will be able to utilize the profit formula to grow and manage your business. Ideally, we're helping you do that with dental intel, but even without dental intel, this will help you. This formula was actually created by our CEO, Weston Lunsford, and is trademarked, which I didn't know until I worked here.
Hey everyone, it's Kendall here. I am assuming it's going to log her back in just a moment. Feel like this time it logged her out at the cliffhanger moment. I would advance her slide so that we can all see the profit formula, but I really wanted her to be able to do that. So I'm gonna be texting with her in the background, see if I can get her logged back in. So just hang tight with me here.
Yeah, Kendall, it reminds me of all those television programs where they get you right to the edge of the moment and then they go to a commercial break.
That's right.
And it's like, whoa, no, wait, what? No.
And those are the days when you couldn't fast forward.
Oh yeah. The thing is, one thing I think we've learned through this whole pandemic here in the U.S. is that our internet is not strongly robust enough for us all to be working from home and having Zoom meetings, right?
No.
So
I think it was probably good with maybe 60 million people, but 330 million people. Yes, we have broken the internet. She told me that it was spinning. She has closed the program. She's coming back in, so she'll be here in just a second.
There we go. I cannot wait to hear this formula. I've got my pen in hand.
As this has happened in the past, this might be a good opportunity if you needed to use the potty. You can go do that or grab yourself a nice refreshing beverage. And hopefully by the time you get back to your computer, Josey will be back in and we will close out today.
And I have to say, for putting on the number of programs that we have and the variety of connections we've had and the number of people that have been on the programs, we've had a few technical glitches, but overall, I would have to commend Kendall, you and the team. We've done really well overall. Oh,
we have.
He's back.
I feel like we've always found a workaround. We've always been able to get through it. Hi, Josey, you're back.
Okay, here we go. Well, let's hope this hangs on for a little bit better. Sorry about that, everybody. I don't know what the deal is. Okay, so the profit formula. Again, jot this down. Can you see me? Am I back? Oh my gosh.
You just
Oh my
wanted to give
gosh.
everyone
Okay.
enough time to write that
Do
down
not,
before you
cross
keep
your
talking.
fingers and nobody move. Okay, so visit, and I'm going to go through each one of these, and I'm going to go quick because I know we have a few more minutes here. So visit times production per visit times your collections percentage. That should actually say collections percentage minus your overhead equals your profit. So we're going to go through what all of this means. So I want to, first we're going to go through visits. So if you think about your production, right, you think about how to increase production, you can either see a whole bunch more people or do more dentistry per person. So I mentioned it earlier, so many dentists, we get addicted to the new patient and we think, I just need more new patients, that's going to solve my problems. Well, yes, a healthy flow of new patients will absolutely help your practice grow. And it depends on where you are in your practice. If you're a startup, yes, you need to increase visits. But if your schedule is booked out like crazy and you can't get people in and you're struggling to keep up, you might be able to pull back on that marketing spend and not focus so much on the new patient. So we're going to talk about ways to increase visits. So yes, the first one is always new patients. That is only a portion of it though. So just take all of your ideas on advertising and marketing and referrals and whatever, we're just going to lump that into new patients. So that's one way to increase visits. The next one is reappointment. Making sure that before your patients leave, you have them scheduled for their next appointment. Anytime I look at an office, so we have a number at Dental Intel, it's called pre-appointment, and it tells me of your active patients, how many of them have a next appointment. Many people, when you say, oh, what do you think that might be, before they start tracking, you're like, oh, like 80–90%, totally. Then they open it up and we sync with their practice management system and they're so surprised to see it's like 40%. And then it's like you're going to doubt the numbers, say, oh, no, this isn't right. This can't be right. Okay, well, let's pull up the list and find out, no, maybe we don't have a system or a process for reappointing our patients. Hygienist, I want you to write down really big on your paper, reappoint every single patient before they leave the operatory. And make sure that you're just assuming the appointment. This is really interesting. So reappointment, the goal should be 90% for hygiene reappointment. Now, I will tell you, if you sync and you find that maybe your reappointment rate is super low, or your pre-appointment, meaning the whole active patient, right, base, how many of them have a next appointment? Let's say that it's 60%, right? It's pretty low. And you look at your hygiene reappointment, and maybe that's 70%, okay? If you increase that by 10%, just from 70% to 80%, your practice in 5 years will be twice the size of what it is today. So many people are spending a ton of money on marketing and new patients, and yet they're going out the back door, or we're not keeping up with them. So your reappointment is how you're going to increase visits. The next one is reactivation. So reactivation means maybe you had a patient, but you didn't reappoint them, or they canceled and you didn't get them back in, and they went maybe 18 months, so now they're considered inactive, and you never saw them. But you reach out and you get them back into the practice, that's reactivation. So you can increase visits that way. The next one is case acceptance. Pretty simple. I mean, if you can work your case acceptance so people are, they're going to get 2 crowns and a filling instead of 1 filling, you're going to increase the number of visits that you're seeing. Reducing your broken appointments. When we first started using Dental Intel, we recognized that our cancellation and no-show rate at Carolina's Dentist was like 30 or 35%, which is what you see in like a Medicaid office. Just in that year alone, we were going to lose $2 million just from people who had scheduled their appointment but didn't show up, which is crazy. So making sure that you're reducing that. Our goal was always 10% or less on those cancellations and no-shows. I love my friend Christina from Dental Intel. She talks about how the schedule is the office baby, and everybody has to nurture that baby all day, every day to keep it fed and happy. If you see emergencies, that's one way to increase visits, leaving some time open for that. It's up to you. You don't have to do any of this if you don't want. It's really about what you need in your practice. But making sure if you do see emergencies or you advertise for that, try to get them scheduled and reappointed so that they become, they're in a hygiene program and they're seeing you more often. And then, some of those like same day rollovers, like, hey, you came in for your hygiene appointment, but, you also need a filling. We could probably do that for you today. Startups are going to have more availability than those of you who are more established and your schedule is packed full. And then really scheduling efficiency. So making sure that the front and the back are really, really calibrated on how long it takes to do what, so that you're scheduling efficiently. And if you are somebody who's using 2 columns, making sure everybody is on the same page for that. Now let's move into production per visit. So we can run around like crazy and see a whole bunch more people and try to increase our production, or we can be more effective and do more dentistry per person. So I would say that, we really, really focused on production per visit in a couple of our practices, and our clinicians were happier. They were feeling more fulfilled, and patients were happier because we were really focused on helping them get the dentistry done that they needed. Now, again, I'm not saying anything about overdiagnosing or overtreating. We have like a 30% case acceptance in dentistry, which means of the people who come and see us, which is only like 30% of the population, we're not doing 70% of the dentistry that they need. So again, this is about just finding ways to decrease barriers. So to increase your production per visit, make sure you have a great patient experience from the time that that phone is picked up to the time that they're checking out and paying their bill and everything in between. That is really, really important. Although I realize the world is changing, I don't think it's changing completely or for good. People will pay for a great experience. Increasing your treatment acceptance, finding ways to help people, being able to talk about the dentistry that they need. Your procedure mix. So if you don't do implants or you're not doing, sleep or whatever it is, dentist, it's really easy for you. You can, go and do some clinical education and increase your procedure mix. For hygienists, it's a little tougher for us, but if that's adding things like perioprotect or oral, salivary testing or whatever the case might be, making sure that you are adding things to your procedure mix. Same day additions will also help you increase your production per visit. So that's Mrs. Jones needed a crown on the upper right, but she also had a filling there. Let's go ahead and get that done so that but while she's still numb. Diagnosing treatment that is needed. So often as dental professionals, we get stuck in this always being told no. So then we only tell people things that there's like an emergency or it's like has to be done and things are falling apart. Being proactive with your patients, and you know what, Mrs. Jones, would you like to know what it would take to get you to optimum comfort, optimum function, where your teeth are all taken care of? Would you be interested in that? So again, that's really just changing the conversation with our team members. Increasing your, that should say fees. Sorry about that typo, guys. It should be increasing your fees. If you haven't done that in some time, again, you may want to look at that. I realize we're in an interesting situation. I realize if you're a team member, that makes you cringe a little bit. But think about how the cost of dentistry is changing and rising. Where, 15 years ago when I took a PA, the little film cost me a few cents, right? And you had your equipment. And now I have to pay for a sensor that's $15,000, and I got to pay for the software, and I got to pay for this, and I got to pay for that. But people aren't really charging more for that PA. So again, you have to increase your fees a little bit over time. If you have not done that in a long time, you might want to take a look at that, because that means think about it, you're doing the same amount of dentistry, but people are paying you a little bit more for it. Decreasing your PPO usage. Again, you're not changing anything, but you're getting paid more for the dentistry that you're doing. Even if that's dropping the one that pays you the least or decreasing how much you're utilizing that one. Having a morning huddle is critical. Hygienists paying attention to who are the patients that I'm seeing, what unscheduled treatment do they have, does the doctor have any availability? Dentist, I'm paying attention to, what's going on. Assistants, especially looking, does Mrs. Jones have anything in the same quadrant or the same side that could be done today while she's already numb and we save her a trip? So again, utilizing that morning huddle and paying attention to that is going to be critical. Kendall, I want to pause. It's 1 o'clock, so time is up. Because of the computer, I have a few more things. I'm just going to blow through it if that's okay.
You're fine. I think we can go until another 5 minutes
I'll be fast.
if you can get through, and then we can answer a couple questions, so that's not a problem.
A membership plan. We loved our patients that were on a membership plan because the write-off was less, right, than what it was for typical insurance. So again, just taking a look at that. For your collections, making sure it's a great experience, making sure you have great systems and processes. Having flexible patient financing. The truth is nobody pays for things up front. If I'm going to go buy a refrigerator or a microwave, I'm not going to pay for it up front. And yet dentistry, we still think that people have money sitting in their pockets and they want to pay for a root canal or, whatever up front. Adapting some flexible patient financing so that patients will accept it, right? It's going to be important. Having really clear financial arrangements, nothing destroys patient experience more. Having a down payment to schedule. We realized we were falling behind on collections, and it's because we had moved away from our policy that if you're going to schedule more than a couple of hours in the dentist chair, you have to have a down payment. And so that one decreased our cancellation and no-show rate, but also making sure that we're collecting what we need to from patients. Automatic billing, it sounds so simple, and yet we found in our team, again, this is learning from our mistakes, is that we didn't have it automatically going out, and so we would have patients that would come into the office like 3 times and they had a bill and our team wasn't collecting. And so making sure if people owe you money, you're sending them a bill, there's nothing wrong with that. I love Laura Hatch's example. You wouldn't go to the grocery store and say, oh, I'm gonna pay for these next month, okay? I'm just gonna take this now. Making sure you have a bad debt process. Looking at your insurance reimbursement rates, can you negotiate any of that? Accurate claims with thorough documentation. Pay attention to, are your crowns getting denied because you're forgetting to put both the pre and post x-ray on there? Specialized roles was helpful for us. We realized that if we have one person up front doing everything or 5 people doing everything, we weren't very good at one thing. So having a front office team member who is really great with patient experience, check-in, check-out, taking payments, a treatment coordinator that was very people-oriented, that loved, going through the treatment plan and finding a way to help patients pay for it, and then people who didn't really like interacting with patients, but they were very task-oriented and driven, very detail-oriented, they were our insurance coordinators. So having people specialize in something was also really helpful. Looking at your AR days and decreasing those, and again, the morning huddle. Who owes us? Who has patient, portion today? What should we be collecting, and making sure we're all on the same page. For your overhead, again, I would rather you focus on the visits and production per visit. Overhead, get yourself a great accountant that might be able to help you, but a few high-level ideas. Pay attention to your supplies. Make sure you're not overly ordering. Order what you need and use it. Pay attention to, your labs. Again, your HR costs, but don't get caught in like, oh, I can't hire anybody because I'm in the margin that I want to. I'm only spending X% of my revenue on people, but my people are worn out and we're having a hard time breaking through the ceiling. People are sometimes an investment to help you break through that so you can increase production. But again, in order to make sure you get the most out of like your people and the investment is using that data in a smart way. Doing a vendor audit for us, we were able to switch 3 vendors for 2 and save some money. And then potentially like, what are you tracking? This is a slide you're probably going to want to take a picture of or write it down. This is the one that I always get a request for. So some of the metrics you want to pay attention to, I already mentioned some of it. Broken appointment, 10% or less on that weekly basis or even that monthly basis. Your treatment acceptance, 50% sounds low, but you'll be surprised when you start tracking it, but it's also how you track it, what that looks like. Call conversion, if you're tracking calls 80% or more. Dentist, 73% of everything that you do comes directly from the hygiene chair. So when we get so addicted to that new patient, actually we found, we did a ton of research, our doctor's production was actually based on how many re-care exams they were doing, not how many new patient exams they were doing. So making sure you're doing those re-care exams and you're following up with patients. I don't know why, but we found that with our patients, about that 3rd re-care visit, they start really accepting some of that treatment because they've been in enough. They're consistent with you, they know you, they feel like they can trust you. Reappointment rates at 90%. I also believe that every team member should have a number. The benefits of people having a number is, number 1, numbers cut through murky subjective communication between the manager and direct report. I'm talking really fast. Number 2, numbers create accountability. Accountable people create numbers. So those who really avoid the numbers, make sure you find out why. Numbers create clarity and commitment. Numbers create competition, good competition. Numbers produce results. Numbers create teamwork, and they solve problems faster. So we made sure that every single one of our team members, including everybody on the leadership team, had at least one number they were accountable for, but somewhere between 1 and 3. Don't load people with like 10 metrics. So 1 to 3 per position. Make sure that you're starting with what are my ideal outcomes and my desired outcomes for that position, and then reverse engineer it. So for a dentist, you might be tracking production per hour or treatment acceptance. For a dental hygienist, you're tracking production per visit and your reappointment rates. A dental assistant, maybe it's same-day additions, maybe it's new patient reappointment. Dental assistants, I will tell you, you are the hardest people to pick the KPI for because what you do is so intertwined with what the dentist does that it's hard to separate who does what. So that's a tricky one. Office manager, pre-appointment, are we making sure our patient base is continually growing and maybe the profitability of the practice? For a patient advocate or front office person, call conversion and broken appointments. An insurance coordinator, maybe it's AR days or your percent of claims that you have under 30 days. And then a treatment coordinator is treatment acceptance and patient collections. So take a quick picture of that if you like. I think that is my last slide. So yes, it is. So there, oh, I went 3 minutes over, Kendall, sorry. So please, if you have additional questions, contact me, jsewell@dentalintel.com. We have free webinars daily where we're talking about ways for you to recover from COVID and helping get the tools in your hands. But I promise that as you focus on both team health and bringing that data to the forefront, that your team will start to drive your business rather than you feeling like you have to really pull people along. And teams that are focused on data and measurement, they are happier, they are healthier, and they know when they're winning. So I'm here for a couple questions if, Kendall, you can guide me to any questions people have.
Thank you, Josey. Thanks for hanging in there with our technical issues as well. It's so good. I am just always amazed at how you can make KPIs and data analytics so much fun to learn about because I don't think that's always the case. So let's answer just a couple of the questions. I think There were a few surrounding training to help move these data points. So does Dental Intel offer training to help move the data? For example, if a practice really wants to focus on increasing a reappointment KPI, do you guys train on proven processes to help them do that?
We absolutely can share best practices, but we are not like a coaching or a consulting company. So we will share, what it is that we know from other practices. We may guide you in that, but a lot of it is when you understand it, you will kind of figure those things out. But so it's not like we're going to do a ton of coaching, but we're going to help you discover your metrics and understand what lies underneath there. So, but we do offer training to the team so that they can do that. And we're focusing right now on building a lot of e-learning for people to go through.
Awesome, awesome. And I know there's lots of great coaching and consulting resources out in the industry as well. So there's lots of that available. One more question. We had a few surrounding, as we start to resume normal operations, whatever that might mean, what would you say is the most important data to use to successfully reopen, if you
really
boiled it down
question.
to just a couple of data points?
What's tough is we can't go back to the goals necessarily that we had before because things are going to be, it's a totally different environment. But we're talking about the business recovering. So that means that, it's revenue generation and it's revenue collections. So I would be paying attention to I would focus on production per visit. So, can we, with PPE being scarce, with only having a few people in the practice at a time, you seeing fewer patients in a day, I would really focus on that production per visit and see if you can maximize that, and then your reappointment and your collections. I know that seems really simple, but this is just ramping back up.
Excellent. Dr. Cooch, did you have any comments that you would like to add in?
I just want to say I took 2 pages of notes here. Josey, you absolutely nailed it. Yeah, you should smile. You did a really commendable job. It's a huge topic to cover in an hour, but you did a commendable job. And so I really just want to say thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and information, with us and everybody that's attended. And Kendall, again, just a big shout out and a thanks to you and the entire Carefree team. This has been an amazing experience.
It really has. And yes, and thank you, Josey. If you have more questions that didn't get answered today, please don't hesitate to reach out to Josey. She's an incredible resource. I know she'd be willing to help anyone that contacted her directly. Thank you again, Josey. You're wonderful. Last but not least, as Dr. Cooch said, thank you to all of our listeners. I feel like I've said it a million times, but it's because we mean it. You guys are the reason for the success of this conference. We would not have been able to pull this off without all of you. So as we all figure out what this next phase looks like, we wish you all the best from the bottom of our hearts. And please use these recorded courses to help you guys navigate the challenges that you might be facing. If you ever have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at Carefree. We are here to help all of you. So thank you, and farewell to everyone. Until next time.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And again, what Kendall said, if there's any way we can be a resource to you, as we're going through this next transition, if there's anything we can do to help you, please let us know. And everybody, be safe and have a great rest of your week. And again, thank you, Josey.